You're welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to be looking at the factors limiting the buyer's protection. So what are those factors that limit the buyer's protection? So we have very many factors, and the first one is the doctrine of caveat emptor. So the doctrine of caveat emptor, it states that let the buyer be aware. So this means that the buyer must exercise caution. They must be aware of what they are buying, so they must exercise caution. The seller is not obligated to disclose defects unless specifically asked. So this principle places responsibility on the buyer to examine goods before purchase and ensure that they meet their needs. So the seller is not required to disclose defects unless the buyer specifically inquires. For example, if you buy a second-hand car without asking about its condition, later it breaks down due to a known engine defect, the seller is not liable because you failed to ask about the issue. So here, this doctrine of caveat emptor states let the buyer be aware, so it means that the buyer must exercise caution when they are buying. The second factor is inexperienced sellers. Inexperienced sellers might not know if goods are suitable for the buyer's intended purpose. Like the buyer must be knowing what they want and what it is going to do, because there are some inexperienced sellers that don't know what the buyer wants. So for example, a seller at a local supermarket sells you a phone but doesn't know if it supports a specific app that you need. So you cannot hold the seller responsible if the phone fails to meet that requirement. Because the seller was inexperienced. They didn't know what you wanted to use the phone for, and they didn't know whether that phone fits your purpose, your intended purpose. Then another factor we have is the limitation of examination. So bulk or pre-packed goods, all those requiring specialized testing, may not be easily examined for defects in case you buy something in large quantity or something that comes when it is already packed. Buyers may not detect defects in bulk or pre-packaged goods or in goods that require specialized testing. For example, if you buy a carton of noodles where the packaging appears fine, then you find that some packets of noodles inside are damaged. As you couldn't inspect all the goods, your protection is limited. What we have is the doctrine of privity of contract. So the doctrine of privity of contract, here only parties to the contract can enforce it. So third parties, e.g. house members, cannot sue the seller even if they are affected. So only parties that were involved in the contract can enforce it. Third parties cannot do anything even if they were affected. So only parties directly involved in the contract can enforce it. Third parties, even if affected, cannot sue the seller. For example, you buy food for your family and then a family member falls ill after consuming it. They cannot sue the seller because they were not part of the purchase contract. So for the doctrine of privity of contract, only parties involved in the contract, directly involved in the contract, can enforce it. A third party cannot, even if they were affected. So we also have other factors. Other factors include the buyer's ignorance of implied terms. If you didn't know the implied terms, there is no way you can be helped. Then the low value of the goods, the high court costs in case there is any damage caused. Then the informal sellers or hawkers further limit the buyer protection because you buy from someone and you will not see them again. So those are some of the factors that limit the buyer protection. We have the doctrine of caveat emptor, which says that let the buyer be aware. Then we have inexperienced sellers, we have limitation of examination, we have the doctrine of privity of contract, and then we have other factors. So thanks for watching. Do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends. Let's catch up in my next video.